I noticed through looking at your background that you had a moment, I'm sure, in your 20s that steered you towards your work as a priest. So
Yes.
you must have had some point, because obviously you left the school having realised that you didn't want to continue a formal education at 16, although obviously you're very intelligent and studious, but you didn't want that particular structure. Australia for a year, obviously with nature and all at one with nature, I should imagine. And then you obviously must have had this point that drew you to this calling to follow this work in the ministry. How did that work? Was that some moment, do you think, that you could pinpoint when you realised that?
I think in each day we're invited to actually have life-changing moments. It's whether we choose or not to accept that invitation. The invitation, I feel, to grow is always there, always in the background of all of our lives. It's just whether or not we are open enough, broken enough, humble enough to accept what is coming through at that particular point. I'd been in Corfu. I'd been on holiday, and my girlfriend had to fly back early, and so I was there for a couple of days on my own, which I was quite looking forward to, actually. But it was the end of the summer, and I got sick. I won't talk you through the details of that. And so I was meant to be getting a flight back to Gatwick, and I jumped on the motorbike that I'd had. I sped off from this beautiful beach called Motiatissa at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd stayed up all night. I'd been hanging out with some friends, and sped off back to Corfu Airport. I was last in the check-in queue. It had been overbooked, and so the flight was full. They'd made a mistake. To recompense me, they put me on a coach. I was the only person on it, and drove me to a hotel, of which again I was the only person present at that hotel, where they made me scrambled egg on toast while I had an 8-hour wait for the next flight out. The hotel was situated above the Aegean, and just below I could see this little jetty which went out into the sea, and I'd eaten my scrambled egg on toast, and so I thought, well, I'll go and sit there for a while. And so I went down and I sat there, and I'm not sure how long I'd been there for, and I was looking into the water, and I could see all these beautiful fish, these little tiny silver fish, and the water was completely clear. And then I don't really quite understand what happened, but I had a very strong experience that someone or something was trying, and had been trying all my life, to tell me that I was loved, truly loved. And at that point, I accepted that. I accepted that I was loved. And that, I think, for me, there have been many points of great, great change, and the choices that have emerged from those points. But at that point, that was the beginning of really, the beginning of the journey which I'm now on. That was really where it started.
So it's just paying attention.
It was being still. It was being in a place where I wasn't considering what I had to do next. It was being, I think, as many of the Buddhist teachers and as Eckhart Tolle would say, it was being open to the present moment. And once I learned how to do that, or once I found myself in that place, rather than being this almost neutral zone, it was probably the most vivid place, and remains to me, increasingly as I get older, the most vivid place I can go is right into the action of the present moment. I have found nothing more vivid than that in my life.
When you wrote your book, The Cave, and that was your experience, for those who aren't familiar of your journey, well, you can explain a little bit more about it, but was that also another moment of transformation when you were completely devoid of any company for that? Was it a month that you did that for? And obviously that was a challenge. How did that come about, and what do you feel about the experience now on reflection?
On reflection, I spent some time living in a cave in the Sinai Desert, and on reflection, when I look back, that was the time when I learned to come to terms with fear. The fear that grips all of us from time to time. The fear in relation to our own identity, how other people will see us. The fear in relation to our mortality, that this is so beautifully impermanent, and I can lose all of it within the next second or minute, not a time of my choosing. And really, so it was those two issues that I was grappling with in the cave. And I can't say that I came to any conclusive conclusions, but I think just the process of facing that fear, those fears which we all have about how we're being perceived, is that just? But also, I think the bigger one about the fact that our lives, all our lives, are simply sojourns for a brief amount of time in the grand scheme of things here. And I think since I've been back, I've been able to work through that. But I think that was the seed that was placed there for me to look at and to learn and to deal with at that time. But I think that's a critical seed for all of us, because I think so many of us spend so much of our lives almost trying to displace that notion that we are impermanent and that we face death at any given time. And I don't think we can be fully human and fully relaxed and fully joyful and fully merciful until we've actually accepted our own gorgeous impermanence and celebrated that and celebrate that. And I can look back now at human beings in history and go, weren't they incredible that they did that? In their little span, they said that, they found that, they saw that, they heard that. But I can only see that now because I've hopefully accepted my own limited span.